There is a man who grew up in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America, raised by his grandmother because the rest of his family fell apart around him before he was old enough to understand why. He had nothing, no connections, no privilege, no safety net. Just two fists and a refusal to quit. That kid from the broken streets of Charlestown, Boston, walked into the NFL and became so physically dominant that offensive linemen who weighed 300 pounds could not block him. Not one-on-one, not two-on-one, sometimes not even three-on-one. He made it to 8 Pro Bowls. He won a Super Bowl. He was named to the NFL 1980s All-Decade Team. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then something strange happened. He walked away from football and essentially vanished from the sports conversation entirely. Today, if you ask the average football fan to name the top 10 defensive ends in NFL history, most of them will not say his name. They will say Lawrence Taylor, they will say Reggie White, they will say Bruce Smith, but they will skip right over the guy who terrorized the NFL for 13 straight years wearing silver and black. His name is Howie Long, and what I'm about to tell you is one of the most disrespected legacy stories in the history of professional football. But before we get to the disrespect, we need to start where it all began. And where it began for Howie Long was a place most people would not survive: Charlestown, Boston. If that name sounds familiar, it should. This is the neighborhood they made the movie The Town about. The one where bank robberies were a family business. The one where talking to the police could get you killed. In the 1960s and 1970s, when Howie Long was growing up there, Charlestown was run by street gangs and organized crime. Kids in that neighborhood did not dream about the NFL. They dreamed about making it to 25 without a criminal record or a casket. And Howie Long's home life was no sanctuary from any of that chaos. His family fractured when he was young. The details are painful and personal, but the result was that Long ended up being raised by his grandmother. She was the one who kept him alive. She was the one who kept him fed. She was the one who gave him whatever stability existed in his world. And if you want to understand why Howie Long played football with the kind of fury that made grown men afraid of him, you need to understand that every single snap of his career was fueled by the memory of what it felt like to be a kid with nothing, in a place that gave you nothing, surviving on pure will. Long was a gifted athlete, but he was not some 5-star recruit with scholarship offers falling out of the mailbox. He played football at Villanova. Not Alabama, not Ohio State, not USC, Villanova, a small school that nobody associated with producing NFL talent. And yet, Howie Long was so physically gifted and so relentlessly aggressive that the Oakland Raiders selected him in the second round of the 1981 NFL Draft with the 48th overall pick. Now, think about where he landed. He did not end up on some friendly, wholesome franchise. He ended up with the Oakland Raiders, Al Davis's Raiders, the most feared, most hated, most villainous organization in all of professional football. The team whose official motto might as well have been, "If you are not cheating, you are not trying." The team that wore black and silver specifically because it looked intimidating. The team that embraced being the bad guys of the NFL the way a wolf embraces being a wolf. And Howie Long fit into that culture like a key sliding into a lock. His rookie year, he was learning, watching, studying, figuring out the speed of the professional game. But by his second and third seasons, something terrifying started happening on NFL film. Offensive linemen, guys who were 6'5" and 300 pounds, guys who were supposed to be the best pass protectors in the world, started getting absolutely destroyed by number 75. Long was not just beating blockers, he was humiliating them. He had this combination of speed and power and technique that simply did not exist in one human body at that time. He could bull rush a 300-pound guard straight into the quarterback's lap. He could use a swim move so fast that the lineman's hands would grab nothing but air. He could read a play before it developed and blow it up in the backfield like he had stolen the playbook.
And here's the thing that separates Howie Long from almost every other defensive lineman in NFL history. He could play anywhere on the defensive line. End, tackle, nose guard. It did not matter. You could line him up in any position and he would dominate. Most defensive linemen are specialists. They play one spot. They master one role. Long mastered all of them. Coaches could move him around the formation like a chess piece, and wherever they put him, the offense had a problem they could not solve. By 1983, his third season, Howie Long was a Pro Bowl player. And in January of 1984, he helped the Raiders do something that still lives in NFL highlight reels to this day. Super Bowl 18, the Los Angeles Raiders versus the Washington Redskins. Washington had gone 14-2 that season. They were heavy favorites. They had the league MVP in Joe Theismann. They were supposed to cruise to back-to-back championships.
The Raiders destroyed them, 38-9. It was not a game, it was a demolition. And Howie Long was right in the middle of it, collapsing the pocket, chasing Theismann, making the Redskins' offensive line look like they had never played football before. That Super Bowl victory cemented the Raiders as one of the most dominant teams of the early 1980s, and Howie Long was their defensive anchor. What followed was a stretch of dominance that should have made Howie Long a household name for the rest of American history. 8 Pro Bowl selections. Think about that number for a second. 8 times, the league looked at every defensive player in professional football and said Howie Long is one of the absolute best. He was named to the 1980s All-Decade team, which means that when historians sat down and decided who the best players of an entire 10-year period were, Howie Long made the list. And the stories from opponents during this era are almost hard to believe. Offensive coordinators would design their entire game plan around one question: how do we handle Long? Teams started double-teaming him on every single play. When that did not work, they triple-teamed him. They would assign a running back to chip him. They would roll the quarterback away from his side. They would do anything and everything to keep number 75 away from the football. And even with all of that attention, Long still made plays. He still got to the quarterback. He still blew up running plays. He still changed the outcome of games single-handedly, while 2 and 3 men were assigned to stop him. There are offensive linemen from that era who have gone on record saying that Howie Long was the most difficult player they ever had to block. Not sometimes, not on his best day, every single week. The man was a nightmare in silver and black, and there was no offensive scheme in existence that could neutralize him completely. And then there was the attitude. Howie Long did not just beat you, he let you know he beat you. He talked, he stared, he played with a nastiness that fit the Raiders' brand perfectly. There were on-field confrontations that became legendary in NFL circles, moments where Long would get in an opponent's face after a sack or a tackle for loss, not because he was showboating, but because that was his way of establishing psychological dominance. He wanted the guy across from him to know that it was going to be a long, painful, miserable afternoon, and it always was. This was the 1980s. The era of Lawrence Taylor and the New York Giants, and that is where the tragedy of Howie Long's legacy begins. Because Lawrence Taylor played in New York, the biggest media market in the world. Taylor was flashy, Taylor was controversial, Taylor was on the cover of every magazine and the lead story on every sports broadcast. And Taylor was phenomenal, nobody is disputing that. Lawrence Taylor changed the game of football. But Howie Long was playing on the other side of the country, in Los Angeles and Oakland, for a franchise that the league itself sometimes seemed to want to pretend did not exist. The Raiders were always fighting somebody. Fighting the NFL, fighting the city of Oakland, fighting the city of Los Angeles, fighting other owners. And in all of that noise, Howie Long's individual greatness got buried. He did not have the New York media machine behind him. He did not have the primetime exposure that East Coast players got. He played in an era before social media, before YouTube highlights, before Twitter could turn a single play into a viral moment seen by 50 million people overnight. If Howie Long played today, with cameras on every angle and clips circulating within seconds of the play happening, he would be universally recognized as one of the 5 most dominant defensive players who ever lived. But he played in the 1980s and 1990s on the West Coast for a franchise that thrived on being outsiders.
and outsiders do not get remembered the way insiders do. Long retired after the 1993 season, 13 years in the NFL, all with the Raiders. And this is where the story takes its strangest turn. After walking away from football, Howie Long did not ride off into the sunset and disappear into quiet retirement. He reinvented himself completely. He joined Fox Sports as a studio analyst for their NFL coverage and became one of the original faces of Fox NFL Sunday. The man who had spent 13 years trying to physically dismantle quarterbacks was now sitting behind a desk in a suit, calmly breaking down game film and giving his expert analysis with a smile. It was one of the most jarring transformations in sports media history. The guy who used to terrify offensive linemen was now making America laugh on Sunday mornings. But it did not stop there. Hollywood came calling. Long appeared in the 1996 action movie Broken Arrow alongside John Travolta. He starred in the 1998 film Firestorm. He wasn't winning Academy Awards, but he was on the big screen, playing action heroes, doing something that almost no NFL player had ever successfully done. And then came the commercials. Howie Long became the face of Chevrolet trucks for years. He was on television constantly, but not for football, for selling pickup trucks. The most feared defensive lineman of the 1980s was now standing in a dealership parking lot telling you about towing capacity and fuel efficiency.
And somewhere in all of those transitions, from football to television to movies to commercials, the football world simply stopped talking about Howie Long the player. He became Howie Long the TV guy, Howie Long the truck commercial guy, Howie Long the actor. The actual football legacy, the 8 Pro Bowls, the Super Bowl ring, the Hall of Fame induction in 2000, the decades of dominance, all of it faded into the background. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio in the year 2000. That should have been the moment where his legacy was permanently sealed, where every football fan in the world acknowledged that Howie Long was one of the greatest to ever play the game. But the ceremony came and went, and somehow the conversation still never fully included him. Go online right now and search for the greatest defensive ends in NFL history. You will find list after list after list, and on most of them, Howie Long is either missing entirely or buried somewhere near the bottom. Players with fewer Pro Bowls, fewer accolades, and shorter careers regularly get ranked above him. It makes no sense unless you understand how legacy works in professional sports. Legacy is not just about what you did on the field. It is about narrative. It is about media coverage. It is about timing. It is about market size. And on every single one of those factors, the deck was stacked against Howie Long. He played for the Villain franchise. He played on the West Coast before West Coast football got the media respect it deserved. He played in the same era as Lawrence Taylor, who sucked all the oxygen out of every defensive player conversation for an entire decade. And then he transitioned so successfully into media and entertainment that people forgot the football entirely. That is the most unfair part of all of this. Howie Long did everything right. He dominated. He won. He made the Hall of Fame. He built a successful second career. He raised 2 sons, Chris Long and Kyle Long, who both went on to play in the NFL themselves, proving that the Long family football DNA was absolutely real. He did everything a man could possibly do in and out of football, and his reward was becoming the most slept-on Hall of Famer in the history of the sport. A kid from Charlestown with nothing became one of the most dominant forces the NFL has ever seen, and the world just shrugged. That is not acceptable, and that is exactly why this video exists. If you made it this far, you already understand something that 90% of football fans do not. You understand that Howie Long deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as every single defensive legend who has ever played this game. Not at the bottom of the list, not as an afterthought, not as, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Right at the top, where his resume says he belongs. So here's what I need you to do right now. Hit that like button, because that is the only way this video reaches another football fan who has never been told this story properly. Write a comment and tell me your honest opinion. Where does Howie Long rank on your all-time list? I want to read every single answer.
And if you're sitting here right now thinking about how many other players and stories are being ignored by mainstream football media, subscribe to this channel, because I promise you this is not the last time we are going to have this conversation. There are more names, more stories, more legends that the football world has disrespected, and every single one of them is going to get the video they deserve. Howie Long was not just a football player. He was a force of nature, born out of nothing, forged in chaos, and unleashed on a league that had no answer for him. It is time the world remembers that.